Hello there. Today we're going to be talking on variables and values. So far we have done some printing and we have played a bit with strings, integers and floating point numbers. So now we're going to try to look a bit into creating variables and assigning values to them. But first let's get familiar with what this is about. When you talk of a value and when you talk of a variable, you're talking of two things. A value represents some abstract mathematical concept or something you can describe in real life. For example, the value could be my age, 98. I could be my name, Eric Kanye. It could also be if I am a boy or not. True. And a variable stores a value. Now when we are dealing with programming, we have to assign sometimes values to variables. So we create these variables and we assign these values to them. Now when we assign to them, we are telling our compiler that we want you to reserve some section of memory for this variable to store this value, and that section of memory is called an object. Let's stop talking and let's start working. So to create a project in Cargo, using Cargo, use Cargo new ex. I forgot the exercise number. It should be ex04, and the name should be variables. Variables and values. Now that that's created, what we can do is copy this name from here, move into that folder and open this in code. So with that created, what we now have is again our very familiar VS Code editor with the main.rs file in it. So like I said, what you have is a value. A value could be a name like 98, could be a name like Eric Kanye, or could be just true. These are examples. If I'm a boy or not, true. What's my name? Eric Kanye. What's my age? 98. While a variable could be what we assign the value to, could be a certain name, what we want to call our value. So you could say age, and you could assign the age, the value 98. You could say name, and you could assign the value Eroy to name. You could also say is male, and you could assign the value true to his male. So this name and this age are what we identify our values with, and we call these the variables. Now the section of memory which I cannot explain here in comments is what we call the object, and we have simply just modeled a real life example of what you understand, what you can easily communicate with in programming, in code, as what variables. So now let's go and practically create an example of this. To create a variable in Rust, we use a fancy keyword. Keywords in Rust are reserved words that are used in the programming language to represent various constructs or to represent various activities or various identifications of the code that we write. An example is the let keyword, which is what we use to represent a variable. So somehow we are telling the compiler, the Rust compiler, let us have a variable age that stores 98. Let age equals 98. Now VS Code shows something here. It quickly understands that this age, since it takes the value 98 and 98 is an integer, it understands that 98 is an I32 integer, 32-bit. That's what that means, right? So now with this, we have simply created a variable age, and we have assigned the value 98 to it. Now we can also say let is male be equal to true, and let name be equal to Leroy Kanye. Now if you look at this, we see that we have assigned true to is male. VS Code understands this as a bool, stands for boolean. So in Rust, we have boolean values which are either true or false. They can take only these two. The variables can contain, if a variable is a boolean, it can contain only true or a false. And finally we have name, which has something like str on it that could represent a string. However, we see a certain symbol before str, which is the ampersand symbol, and we're not going to talk more about this. We'll see into it later. But let's just know that this variable name stores a string error kanye. Now we get out this print line statement and we'll try to print out all of this as usual. So printing out this, we know that we have to give let's say age, for example, age equals, and we need to put our place values for age. After here we say age, right? Next thing, the print line, the name, Ismail, we say Ismail equals, we say here Ismail. And finally we're going to be printing name equals, and we give the name here as name. So what we have just done is we are trying to print the age, Ismail, and name. And if you look at this, we are simply just giving the name of the variable we have here. So let's print this out first and let's do a bit of an explanation again. Open to our terminal, we do cargo, keep typing Q, cargo run. Alright, finally what we have here is age equals 98, Ismail equals true, and name equals error. One simple warning here: convert the identifier to snake case. Alright, and after that, oh yes, getting the correction block here. Perfect. Now let's talk a bit on what we've seen. When we have assigned a value to a variable, we have simply just used this as a reference to that value. So when we are saying print line age equals this, in code or in memory, what happens is this age is no longer shown here, but rather what is shown here is 98. So in a way, we are just providing a way of accessing these values and a way in which we can change the variables to a different value whenever we need. So we are now able to access Ismail, age, and name, not by actually assigning the values as we have been doing in the print line functions that we've been working with. Rather, we now give them a name and we can assign these names instead of the values. Second thing is, in Rust, when we are creating variables, there's a construct for creating these variables. So if we have worked with some other programming languages before, like Java, for example, Java uses the camel casing method for naming its variables. Ismail, danger zone, and so on, or something like last name. But in Rust, we are following the snake case where you say Ismail, danger zone, and last name. This is snake case, while this is camel case. So what you're simply doing is, wherever you realize that you have individual words, you separate them with an underscore for the snake case. As for the camel case, you're simply separating them by saying stating the first letter of the next word as capital letter. So with that, we've been able to create three variables here: age, Ismail, name, and we've been able to assign them or to use them in the print line function. Now moving forward, we're going to be looking more into how we can play with these variables and play with the values that these variables store. Thank you very much, guys. See you in the next video.